Borderland is a 2007 American-Mexican horror film written and directed by Zev Berman. It is loosely based on the true story of Adolfo de Jesus Constanzo, a drug lord and the leader of a religious cult that practiced human sacrifice. Costanzo and his followers, called the narco-Satanists, kidnapped and murdered University of Texas Jr. Mark J. Kilroy in the spring of 1989. The film begins with Mexico City policemen banging on the door of what seems to be an abandoned house. Ulysses and his partner enter the house and find gruesome remnants of animal sacrifices and human remains. The two are ambushed by the occupants and Ulysses is forced to watch them torture and mutilate his partner until he is decapitated. Ulysses is shot in the leg and is allowed to live to warn other law enforcement officials to stay out of their way. 1 year later, Ed, Henry, and Phil, three recent Texas college grads, are enjoying a college beach bonfire in Galveston, Texas. They decide to head down to Mexico for the week to hit up the strip clubs and take advantage of a lack of law enforcement. Ed meets a bartender named Valeria after being stabbed defending her in a bar fight and falls in love with her, while Henry sets Phil up for his first sexual encounter with a prostitute who is barely 17. Phil immediately falls in love with the prostitute, who he quickly finds out has a baby. The boys, Valeria and her cousin Lupe, indulge in some hallucinogenic mushrooms before going to a carnival. Phil leaves early to give the prostitute's baby a teddy bear, and as he walks from the carnival alone, Phil reluctantly gets into a car with a couple of men who proceed to abduct him when he tries to leave. The next morning, Henry and Ed notice that Phil did not come back, and the two begin to investigate, eventually teaming up with Ulysses after Henry gets shot, and they find the local authorities and the townspeople utterly terrified of Phil's captors. Phil is revealed to be kept in a shack on a ranch under the watch of Randall, an American serial killer affiliated with the cult, who wounds Phil after he tries to escape. The captors explain that they follow some African voodoo called Palomayam and are preparing a human sacrifice to get the power of Nganga for their drugs to be invisible to the border guards while smuggling them into the U.S. Henry is later hacked to death by several men with machetes on the roof of their hotel, and Ed and Valeria decide to go with Ulysses to go kill the men who abducted Phil. By then, it is too late to save Phil, however that does not stop Ulysses from shooting the leader of the cult to death after being shot himself. Ed, Valeria, and Ulysses travel down the road to a house inhabited by an old man, where Ulysses bleeds to death. The cult members followed Ed and Valeria to the house, and the two risk their lives to kill the remaining members, eventually deciding to swim across the Rio Grande, 2 kilometers north of their location. The movie ends with a caption explaining that several kilos of cocaine were found in containers along with human hair. Over 50 bodies were exhumed from a mass grave at the ranch. Ed and Valeria were questioned after being caught swimming across the river, and that several suspects remain at large. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe the channel for more updates.